A lot of you have probably heard of Stourhead, and I probably ought to explain that there are now two Stourheads. There's the Stourhead National Trust Estate with the gardens and the house and the hundreds of thousands of visitors, and the Stourhead Western Estate, which is the bit of the estate that the family kept after the estate was split in 1946. The then owner died without an heir, but his only son was killed in the First World War. So he left a lot of it to the National Trust, and so basically the house, the gardens, and all the good farmland went to the National Trust, and all the bad farmland and most of the woodland came to my grandfather. So we've currently got about 850 hectares of woodland, most of which, let's say 80% of which, has been planted on open ground since the estate was purchased in 1720. So this is not, it's not a lot of ancient woodland. A lot of it is new, in a sense, new woodland. The biggest deforestation was probably in the 18th century, but there were continuing additions in the 19th and 20th century. And now we're doing some more in the 21st century. The objectives were always multiple. Certainly growing timber, but landscape was always very important. And then probably in later years, biodiversity, once the word had been invented, biodiversity became part of the mix of what we're trying to achieve. The last 25 years, we've been using a method of forestry called continuous cover forestry, which sort of means what it says. It's continuous in the sense that you never fell all the trees. So conventional plantation forestry is you plant an area of land, you grow the trees, you maybe thin them a few times, and then you cut them all down, and then you start again. We believe that it's better both financially and in lots of other ways to not do that, but to continually thin the trees. So when the trees are smaller, what you're constantly doing is removing the least good trees. So at the end of the process, and then as gaps appear in the forest, you start to get natural regeneration. So trees are actually getting new trees coming from seed, which are just naturally forming. So economically, obviously you save on planting costs, which is good. Harvesting is more expensive, management is more expensive. One of the reasons you gain economically is that the average size and quality of the trees you get from the sort of mix of things you cut down, they're bigger and of higher quality, which also tends to have a climate change benefit, well, carbon benefit, because if you have a woodland and never cut anything down at all, at some point it'll be dying at the same rate as it's growing. You'll be sequestering no further carbon. What you want to do is when you cut trees down, which allows more carbon to be sequestered in the forest, you want to keep that carbon out of the atmosphere for as long as possible. So if I send something to be firewood, it obviously 6 months' time, someone sticks it in their fire and it's back in the atmosphere. If it's slightly higher quality, it maybe makes a garden fence or something, and that will last 10, 20 years. Or if I can get it into construction, in a house or something, hopefully 60 years, 100 years. Really high-end construction, and maybe virtually forever. So that's the aim, is to produce high quality timber, which A, will earn us more, but B, will be used in products that last for a long time. Another feature of continuous cover is that you end up with a very complicated woodland. You've got big trees, medium-sized trees, little trees. You've got gaps where there's ground shrubs and things growing. It's a complicated structure, and it turns out most wildlife likes complexity. There's a niche for someone everywhere. We've always believed this. Quite hard to prove it. So we actually, between 2019 to 2021, we did a wildlife study. It was managed by Butterfly Conservation, but it did incorporate looking at birds and at bats. Butterfly side of it was mainly moths rather than butterflies. Spiders and plants as well, plants on the ground. And certainly we show some differences between simple and complicated structures. But one thing we certainly see of our more complicated structures, our more developed continuous cover woodlands, is that just there was an awful lot of biodiversity there, an awful lot of species, an awful lot of different species. I mean, the one that really blew me away was bats, where we had 13 different species of bats. Partly because I didn't know there were 13 different species of bats in Britain. Apparently there are actually 18, but 13 out of 18 is a pretty good hit rate. Moths, we had 248 different species. Birds, 26 different species. Plants, 128 different species. So certainly it's, we can see that there is a lot of, this is within, it's basically commercial conifer woodland, but done in a different way. So what we want to do is more of the same. So the plan is to plant about 80 hectares of new woodland and basically extending out from the existing woodland. It's again going to have a large component of what you might call commercial conifer, so there'll be about 65% conifer, which is both commercial and for climate change reasons. Because one of the things we found is that with our broadleaf, probably only about 20% of it goes into long life products. But sadly, the vast majority of it goes into carbon. Conifer, a lot more of it will go into long life products, and it grows that much faster. Just the amount of biomass created is faster for the conifer. So, in terms of doing something for climate change, conifers have definitely got the edge over broadleaves. Broadleaf, better for biodiversity, in some cases better for landscape. So quite a lot of the broadleaf is sort of belts around the outskirts of the new woodland. Some of it between us and the National Trust, either so that they can't see old conifers, or so that people walking on our land can't see their car park. I see Ian smiling there. I'm talking commercial conifer, but it's not. Some people say, "Oh, it's a monoculture." Well, in the conifer we got something like 14 species of conifer. In fact, even within the conifer group, we've probably got 4 or 5 species of broadleaf. And altogether, we've got 13 species of broadleaf and various shrubs that will be sort of on the edges and the open ground. So, 2 reasons for that. One, 4 things like biodiversity is better. Second, if we do hit 3 degrees, a lot of these might not survive. Plus, the risk of suppressing diseases, it's what we're doing is not putting everything in, all our eggs in one basket. So, particularly, we're looking at some species that we think can potentially take higher temperatures, might do better, like coastal redwood in California, Japanese red cedar, another one, Atlas cedar, we're doing some of this. We are sort of trying to, if we hit 3 degrees, we'll be in big trouble. I'm not denying that. So what we're hoping is we can do something about it and not get it. But we've at least hedged our bets as far as we can to be climate change resilient, shall I say. It's a total of 190,000 trees. Most of the broadleaves are being planted by hand, and quite a bit of the conifer where it's on stony ground and a tree planting machine wouldn't work if it's planted by hand. The rest of it, probably, I can't even remember the size, I think probably 110, 120,000 of them are being planted by machine, which is what I was going to ask whether anyone would be interested in having a go at helping. This machine is basically a series of 3 seats pulled along behind a tractor, and a little plough opens up a furrow. A rotating wheel drops a tree in, and 2 wheels at the back squish the soil back in again. When the operator comes in, he sits there on the seat, and he has to clip the right trees into the right clips as this wheel rotates. Doesn't require a huge amount of skill. You think it'd be boring, but actually it requires so much concentration that you tend not to get bored. So all I'm saying is if anyone wants to just come and have a go, just come and have a go. If anyone wants to come and do at least half a day and be paid for it, then I'm very happy to do that. Currently got various people, a couple of lads who want to get involved in conservation, got a chef from the local pub when he's not on shift, have actually one of the barmen from the local pub, and various other people. So anyone can give it a go, and they'll be very welcome. So I think now I'll don't know what your format is, but I think before talking about retrofit or anything like that, any questions on that?
Yes, questions. Anyone? And does anyone think you might be in a position to do something on that soon? Keith, Julian's. Let's take Keith and then Julian.
Hello, thanks for that informative bit of information. The question I had was to do with, if you're creating an area of land where you can produce evidence that the biodiversity count is increased, does that give you a marketable and saleable benefit then to other people who are looking to develop a sort of biodiversity credits market in the future? Is that not something you've looked at?
Not really. I noticed that all the latest farming magazines are full of biodiversity net gain. And the one thing I didn't mention, which I probably should mention because it's very relevant, is that one of the things we could have done on just planting new woodland is claim carbon credits or sell carbon credits, which seems to me to be defeating the object. So I'm not. Got a generous grant from the Forest Commission, very happy with that. I could sell carbon credits on top of that, and I'm not going to, because I'm damned if I'm going to give a get out of jail free card to anybody else.
So that means probably then that is something you could count towards, depends how I don't know how the Stourhead estate runs, but if it was required to offset some of your own carbon impact and stuff, you could say we're keeping those credits as a way to balance off, say, the cost of running the part of the estate which is under the National Trust, or is that a completely separate organisation?
It is a completely separate organisation, and I'm sure they're doing marvellous things to offset their own emissions.
Yes, probably. But I mean,
they certainly are doing a lot of work in trying to, put in renewables and that sort of thing. So I think they're well aware of it. And I calculated what the carbon we'll be absorbing is, and if I assume our village emits the typical for Britain, we basically make the village carbon neutral, which for such a big project is quite sobering to think how little it is.
Yes. So to make on that basis, then every village, which is not a very big village, on a similar basis, would need to plant a pretty damn large, long-term, quite manageable, labour-intensive, effort-intensive forest next to it.
Yeah, which is why if our politicians think just planting some more trees is going to solve the problem, probably not.
No, it's not. Okay, thanks.
Okay, lots of lovely hands up. Julian, you're at the back of the queue now. I've got Claire, Mel, Adrian, Ian, Julian. So let's keep it to the point. There's one other question in the chat first. How do we get in touch with Nick so that we can get in touch regarding the tree planting? So Nick, at the same time as fielding these questions, have a think about what to put contact link into the chat, okay? So we got Tony, Claire, Mel, Adrian, Ian, Julian. Tony, unmute.
I've got a sound problem here, obviously. So forgive me if, thank you for your talk. Forgive me if you mentioned this, but say the sound wasn't great on my system here. But the question I've got is, as I understand it, you are on the edge of the Selwood Forest?
Yes.
So the question is, I guess, is what sort of action are you taking? Are you cooperating with other landowners in the Selwood Forest as part of a sort of much broader scale regeneration and biodiversity effort?
Yes, I am. I'm part of the Stourhead Forest Facilitation Group, who recently been set up. I was part of something else that had a different name before it, but I think now it's a formal facilitation group with some funding from the government.
So there's a sort of last time I looked, there's a sort of effort to try and do a region-wide approach. So you're very in your plans. Are you thinking in terms of how that helps link up adjoining landowners, land uses, forestry, to enable that sort of corridor effect around biodiversity?
I think it's early days, but yes. I mean, I think I believe the focus of the Selwood, well, initial focus of the Selwood group is to look at the streams, because obviously we've got the headwaters of a lot of different rivers. So certainly, looking at stream corridors will be interesting. Smaller side, by one of our lakes was a tree obviously cut down by beavers last week. So we're going to see some changes there, I think.
Thank you.
Mel, unmute and speak. By the way, we've already got 34 people in the chat who are saying they're interested, Nick. So that's very positive. Mel.
Yeah, the sound isn't great actually for me either. But so I wondered whether you were saying that you were only planting conifers or a variety of different trees. I wasn't quite sure.
It's about 65%. I don't know whether I'm too far away from my microphone. It's about 65% conifer, and the West broadleaf, and a big range of both conifers and broadleaf in terms of numbers of species, just to give us resilience against disease and climate change.
Right.
Thank you. Thanks, Nick. Adrian, unmute.
Oh, hi, Nick. I was just wondering if you've planted using a plough before, because I was over at Helen Browning's farm last year, and they planted like that in 2018, and they lost most of their trees when it was really hot because the plough furrow just opened up and the trees couldn't cope.
I have heard that that is a risk. I mean, the two things we're doing to prevent that. One is we do actually do a certain amount of going along behind and treading in the other direction, just to make sure they're better compacted. About three things. Two, we're planting as early as possible. That's why we've got into the planting in October, and we're trying to get as much done as possible. The longer it's got to settle through the winter with lots of rain, allowing the soil to sort of bind again. I think the other one I'd say is we do have very different soils, and that it's a green sand soil, it's a relatively sandy soil. I think on clay you obviously do get the risk of that shrinkage, and obviously if you put a plane of weakness in, it will shrink there. If you get very hard frost, very bad drought, you can lose an awful lot of trees. So I'm doing an awful lot of crossing fingers and touching wood.
Okay, those two great questions, I thought. And Claire, do you want to unmute and go? Then we've got Ian and Julian.
Yes, thank you for the talk, Nick. It's sort of like the sublime to the ridiculous compared to what I'm talking about with our sort of individual elm trees. My question again was on the conifers. I was interested where you said you were having a variety of conifers, and I didn't quite catch what you were saying about resistance to more extreme conditions, because I've been I got interested in Q's expedition to Romania to collect seed and so on from trees which were operating in more harsh conditions than we have, but the same trees that we have, say oaks and so on. So is there a sort of standard guide with regard to conifers, or a standard understanding perhaps as to what will and won't be more resistant to climate change? Because that's a thing that exercises me a lot as to whether we're going to end up planting lots of things which are just going to curl up their toes and give up.
The Forestry Commission have attempted to. There's a system called ESC, and I can't for the life of me remember what ESC stands for, but it is a list of all the species, what they think, in terms of what soils they're suited to, what other conditions, how wind firm they are, but also particularly how productive they think they'll be in, I can't remember, 2 or 3 different climate change scenarios. So we certainly based quite a bit of it on that, some of it on our own gut feel, And some of it is even within, I mentioned a range of species, but in some of the species, for example, Douglas fir, which we plant a lot of, we've gone for 3 different provenances. So from different sources of seed, which again, and we're probably looking, where most Douglas fir planted in Britain over the last 100 years has been from Washington. We're looking to sort of move a bit further south to maybe seed from Oregon, and some that's grown in a specialist seed orchard in France. Again, it should be better to higher temperatures. So yes, it's both the species themselves and the provenance within that species.
Thanks, Claire. Nick, let's crack on. This is almost could be a separate Zoom meeting of the people that are interested. But let's just field the last couple of questions. Let's have no more on this, and that's Ian next. You're unmuted. Good.
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, I was just more of a comment really, which is just Nick's doing some great work at Western, and just the way they manage the woodland is really interesting. And we're doing some similar kind of work, and that point about linking it up to a wider landscape, absolutely. So we've got a vision on the NT Stourhead land, which is because 65-70% of the National Trust's carbon emissions come from the management of our land. So that's our single biggest win that we can get, is to change the management of our land, work in partnership with tenants and the land we've got in hand. So yeah, we're sort of linking up on that. And Nick referred to, and someone else referred to, Forest of Selwood. So yep, that's a great, fantastic vision for what we might do there. It also overlaps with the Heart of Wessex Environment Agency project as well, which is trying to manage the upper catchments of about 6 rivers, which also has some climate benefit to it, as well as big nature gain as well. So I suppose what I'd say is there's an awful lot going on in that area, which is really exciting. It's suddenly emerged into a sort of really big opportunity. So we're also talking to the Wiltshire Council about it in relation to nature recovery strategies as well.
Great, and I want to introduce Ian at the beginning, if you missed him in the chat. Ian, you're the Assistant Director for the National Trust in the Southwest, and you're really welcome.
Thanks. And maybe at some point in the future, I'll come and do a piece on what we're doing across Wiltshire, and just how we're looking at climate action is one of our 2 organisational priorities, and will be for our new strategy. We're doing a huge amount with some quite challenging targets that we've set ourselves, including tree planting, which we're
and I've seen some of your adaptation work, which I think is brilliant. So we've just got time, I think, for Julian, your question or comment.
Thanks. Yeah, so 2 parts really, because it second depends on the first. What sort of soil type is it, and what's it doing at the moment, Nick?
It's a green sand, upper green sand, a fairly rich version of it, in that it's sort of slightly on the flat in the top rather than on the sort of landslip slopes. It is currently arable, and I've had various people objecting because it's actually classed as grade 2, although it's slightly shaky grade 2, I would say. If it was really good, the previous tenant would have paid me.
Right, okay, yeah, so that sort of negates my second part really. Now I was going to ask sort of if you'd looked at other fibre crops that might make most advantage of the type of land. I mean, hemp being one of them, for example, but that doesn't need the high quality land. So yeah.
The reason not is personal, in that I'm very much a forester, not a farmer. In fact, when I took over the estate from my father, I had to promise my wife that I would never actively farm, because the whole family are notoriously bad at it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much, all those who asked these great questions, and particularly you yourself. I'm going to manhandle the agenda a bit, Nick, because although you have a contribution to make on your experience retrofitting with heritage homes, I'm quite keen for us to press, because that could be so open-ended. I'm quite keen to press on with our update on the website on energy saving home retrofit, and plans for a Wiltshire and Swindon Green Homes event next February. So who's going to kick us off on the website update and the February event, please?
Yeah, Andrew, I'm happy to do that. So good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all.
I'm going to rattle through a PowerPoint presentation, but before I do that, I'll just show you some fantastic stuff that's gone onto the WCA website, and that's mostly down to the hard work of Jackie McQueen over there. Give us a wave, Jackie, just so we know that you're there. And Ian, husband, have been doing lots of stuff on the website to give everybody information about retrofitting. One thing that we've in WCA, when we first started WCA 3-4 years ago, we were still having the argument of whether climate change was a man-made thing. I think that argument has been had, and now we're starting to see people wanting to change their lifestyle and wanting to change and reduce their own carbon footprint, which is why we're moving more towards kind of more of an emphasis on helping people to do that. So let me show you very quickly where on the website you can find this fantastic page. And Jackie, do chip in if you want to add anything to it. So hopefully you can see the WCA website. There's stuff on there about elms. So Claire will talk us a little bit later on about there. So if you need that information on there, that's there. That'll be there for about another week or so, and then that will be replaced by some stuff on green open homes. So we tend to kind of put current stuff there. If you go to the interesting stuff bit, and the first one down is home improvements, and there is all the information that you could ever possibly want around retrofitting, and particularly for people living in Wiltshire and so on. There's all sorts of links to if saving money is the issue, or damp, or making your home warmer, or saving the planet. All the information that you need is there, and it'll take you directly to the section that you need. There's also this really useful menu that stays on the side, so if people are wanting information on a particular bit, then quick access to that, and that's how it works. Is there anything else, Jackie, that you want to add about that particular page?
Yes, I'm on mute. Just we wanted the main purpose which came out of our group discussion was nobody understands the word retrofit, and that most people would come to needing to make a change because they're cold, can't afford to keep their home, or have somewhere at the back of their mind that feeling they ought to be doing something for the planet. So the idea is that it hopefully will catch the eye at the top and then feed through to more information. There's some great sources of information out there on the web, but you have to know to look for them. And that is the purpose of having lots of resources, so people, whatever their journey is and whatever their needs are, can find help and can find a way to find more information about what they need. Because as ever, you never know what you don't know, which is what mirrored by our own personal journey trying to retrofit our home. Everything involves taking a step back because you didn't know you needed something before you need something else.
Thank you very much, Jackie. And I think one point to make out is a lot of people want to do this stuff below. They want to have air source heat pumps or underfloor heating or better insulation, but often they don't know who to go to. They don't want to put a call in because they're going to get lots of cold calls and all that kind of stuff. So this is why we're now looking to progress green open homes. And just when you want information on the website, if you go to events, and then it's Green Open Homes 2024, and then there's a page on that. But I'm just going to stop sharing, and there's information on there about what Green Open Homes is, information for local group coordinators, which we're hoping to recruit, and then information for homeowners. I'm just going to stop sharing because I'm just going to rattle through a quick PowerPoint slide, if I can do that. And there it is. Okay. Oops, someone's unmuted themselves. There we go. Anyway, here we go. So, Green Opens Homes. We have changed the date, okay, because that happened to be on half term, and we thought lots of people would be about. So, thanks to Jeremy Wyatt for these slides, because a lot of these slides are down to him. So, I think Jeremy's around, and Jeremy is part of Great Bedouin. And Great Bedouin and a couple of other areas, including Hungerford and one other, and I can't remember what the other one was, has already done a Green Open Homes event, and they did that in October.
Is that right, Jeremy? Are you there? He's there somewhere. Anyway, he's there. He's there
Yes,
somewhere.
he is. He should be
Yeah.
upstairs.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
correct. Yeah.
There they are. So you can do chip in when I go through your slides. If anything I've missed or anything else like that. But basically, that event went really well, and Wiltshire Climate Alliance then thought, well, wouldn't it be a fantastic idea to do that across the whole of Wiltshire over a week period or 10-day period? And the aim is basically to raise awareness around green homes and technologies such as heat pumps, wall insulation, and home batteries, and it also then to enable people to gain confidence in installing those by talking to homeowners who've already installed these without that sales pitch. So and then when we're looking at what we mean by green open homes and what's in scope, it's useful just to kind of say, well, it's not just double glazing, okay, because that's already kind of quite ubiquitous. It's out there everywhere. So we're talking about examples of low carbon heating, such as heat pumps and other systems, energy saving, such as insulation and so on. Any generation, so people who've installed PV, storage as well, and low embodied carbon buildings, so passive houses and so on. So examples like that is where we're going to be looking for homeowners, so people who've installed something like that in their home, who'd be willing to then open their house and talk to people about it, to encourage more people to lower their carbon footprint. But the way we're going to try and do this is that WCA will coordinate it and talk with Wiltshire Council, who are happy to kind of come on board and dedicate their comms team to help with communications and so on, and also CSE, so Centre for Sustainable Energy, etc., are going to help us with this. So we're going to be doing some of that coordinating role. What we're looking for now is our member groups to help us recruit homeowners and to coordinate it at a local level. So why would a local climate action group want to be involved? All sorts of reasons. It's a good way to raise the group's profile. We will help by publicising it and pushing it out there and being part of a county-wide project and initiative. Good ways to show off local green homes, and likely to help local people to understand what's involved and convince them, more people locally to have greener homes, and may help to recruit more volunteers and group members, because they're actually seen to be doing something in the community to encourage more sustainable living, and may help groups to identify reliable, trustworthy local suppliers. So the more we know about suppliers locally, the more we can provide that advice to people. Do stop me, Jeremy, if I'm missing anything. Okay.
That's great.
Okay, I'll carry on, and we'll raise the profile of of WCA and also Wiltshire Council in a positive way. That's fine if they're willing to come on board, which they've indicated that they are. Then that's all well. Jeremy's kindly put together a project plan. We're kind of working our way through it. We've got a little working group that's working through the plan, and we're now at the point where we need to recruit local climate action groups to help coordinate locally. So this is what we're going to be the purpose of us talking here. I shan't go too much more detail around what the plan is, but that's it, the plan. So recruiting homeowners, just to go through that very quickly, what's going to be involved. We need to have at least, they will need to have at least one novel energy saving type thing, so storage or generation in place to kind of be a good example. Ideally have data on available, so a kind of a bit of a data sheet to give to people to explain how it's been for them, has it cost them more money, less money, etc., etc. Willing to provide some photo and basic information. Willing to open their homes at least one day during that period that we're saying, so between the 8th of March and the 17th of March. And have groups of people, so a maximum of 3 people at any one time. Okay, and we suggest that people have 1 hour slots, which lasts 45 minutes and 15 minutes in between each slot. Ideally, put your valuables away. We'll talk about insurance a little bit later, but it's also been suggested that some of this could be done over a WhatsApp chat and do a remote walk around the house and talk to people that way. And I think that may well be quite popular. So we'll watch that space to see how that goes. There's some really good information on the Great Bedouin website and so on about how they did it and so on. Homeowner security and confidentiality, there's some useful information here. I'm not going to go into too much detail at the moment around that, unless people have got questions around it. But we have negotiated third-party liability insurance through what Great Bedouin did around from the community area partnership. We're talking to, or Julian will be talking to Friends of the Earth, who we are a member of, who offer free insurance for the member groups. So that may be a way to sort that one out and so on. And here's kind of an example of what the website, the Open Homes website looks like. There's kind of various different symbols for people to look at a glance to see what kind of technology people have installed in their houses, and they click on them and get more details. We intend to use the Green Open Homes, National Green Open Homes website. It works well, creates a map showing where these open homes will be during that time and so on. Okay, so that's an example of when you've clicked on a house. Okay, and then this is an example of, again, of the publicity that people used for the Great Bedouin one. Okay, and some lessons learned. Jeremy, do you want to go through these? It might be kind of, because you were involved and you kind of.
Sure. Yes. We originally planned our event in September, mid-September, and we started looking for green open homes to open up to try and recruit homeowners. I think back in May or June, being quite optimistic, we knew quite a few homeowners locally, but it actually took quite a while. We reckon we needed a critical mass of 12 homes before we could really start publicizing the website and the event. And it was quite slow. Maybe it was because of the summer. It does take time. And we used a variety of channels, social media, talking to people, asking them to talk to homeowners, asking them to talk to their friends, etc. So I think that's something which we underestimated. And in fact, we've slightly extended the planning period for this event through into March instead of February. Again, thinking, well, we've got Christmas coming. It's going to take a while to bring homeowners in, and we need to be able to have a clear offer to homeowners, and that's why we have a page of information about what we're really asking them, and to be able to reassure that they will know the name of the visitors. There will be no more than 3 visitors, and if they want, they can check driving licenses or photo ID at the door. Particularly if you're living alone, you might feel a bit concerned. So reassuring homeowners that this is actually a really easy and quite fun opportunity to get to know people and share what you've learned. We had somebody, our administrator Ruth, was brilliant at capturing the information that we needed from the homeowners to populate the website, but it did take several email exchanges quite often. There were 1 or 2 homeowners said, "Oh, don't worry, just give me the link, I'll put my own information in," but most of them didn't do that. The CSE website worked very well. Those symbols are slightly clunky. There's things like big insulation works. I'm not sure what that means. That some of the icons. So in the end, Ruth did a list at the bottom of our entry. Just if people want to see heat pumps, go here. If you want to see a home battery, go there. So some of the items on the CSE built-in icons weren't really quite relevant. We also looked at online booking tools, and we actually tried out Eventbrite and Calendly, but they didn't seem to work. It was going to be clunky. Homeowners would have to set up an account. And so in the end, we asked people to to share an email address. And of course, you can set up your own email address, a special email address for this. You don't have to give your personal email address. So again, people can keep their personal email address private, as long as you're prepared to log in regularly to the event email address that you set up. We discovered ourselves, we got quite a few bookings. I think we had a dozen or 15 separate slots booked, and we were double booking. Well, I was double booking over what Sylvia had booked, and so we just did a very simple visitor booking form. That also reminded us to capture people's phone numbers in case of delays or some other reason. Some people live in remote parts where you need what-through words, not just a street address. Where to park can be an issue. And we also did do some visitor information forms. And actually what happens, we tend to sit over people at the end of the visit, say, would you mind just spending a couple of minutes filling this out? Because we need to be able to evaluate this. And most of the visitor information and feedback forms came from 2 or 3 of the homes, including our own home, where people did that. We initially thought, oh, well, we'll just put it on Google Forms, but actually we're not optimistic people would fill that in. So yeah, that's the main lessons.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. It's been absolutely fantastic having you on the working group because of your experience and knowledge and so on. So absolutely fantastic.
Could I just add 2 things? It's Sylvia White.
Yeah.
One, it's actually Great Green Bedouin. You'll find the website.
Oh, yes.
It's not just Great Bedouin, so you wouldn't find it if you tried Great Bedouin. It's Great Green Bedouin. Okay. And the second thing is that we found it very difficult if we had more than 2 people or a couple at one time. So if you can book people into separate slots, because quite often people are asking completely different things and you're pulled in 2 different directions.
This was from the pilot that we did last year, and we didn't restrict the numbers, and we ended up, I think Sylvia and I ended up with a separate group each, taking them around the house because they had different objectives, they were different stages. Oh, and that's another lesson actually, is one of the things that we did right at the beginning. We sat people down and said, okay, thanks for coming. What is it that's of interest to you? What stage, what's your ambition, if you like? Are you just interested in saving money by doing some draft proofing and maybe a little bit of insulation, or have you got bigger ambitions? Tell us about your home and what your plans are.
Thank you. Lovely. I'm going to move on to the next slide. So, Andrew, you're right that we're going to do a quick breakout session.
Yes, we're good for time as long as we start in the next 5 minutes.
So this is basically to give us a bit of a chance to have a quick chat about this project. Over just next few 10 minutes, if you could, when we break you up into groups, if you could kind of allocate someone to take notes, to feedback, that'd be really helpful to help us get this project off the ground. So it's kind of 3 questions really. So what have you or your group done around promoting retrofitting? There we're just looking for good examples. And would your group be interested in being involved? So when I mean a group, I mean someone like, Sustainable Devices or Bradford on Avon, etc., or Leaf or etc. That's what I mean. And do you or someone would be willing to open up their homes, basically? So I'm just going to stop sharing. I'm going to copy. Can I copy? I can't copy that. I will copy that and those questions and put it in the chat in a second.
Okay, so, while you're doing that,
yes,
you work on that. And I want to add that if you can't respond positively to any of those questions because of your situation, there's always the question, what are the barriers you feel that are lying between you and doing green retrofitting initiatives on your home? So that's an alternative question. Bit of housekeeping here. 2 or 3 of you could mute. I think Bill.
That didn't work.
And anyone else who's unmuted could mute if you're not speaking. It'll improve the audio. And so we're going to go into breakout rooms of about 10 minutes, I think. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, that's right. Who's doing that? Am I doing that, or is Julian? Are you doing that?
Julian, are you doing it? Julian.
Yeah, you do it, Chris, if you can. Thank you. I was just going to very quickly say one other way you can get involved is to be a volunteer helping homeowners to manage visitors. My experience with Bristol, and we, that way we were able to be a bit more relaxed about the booking system, as long as you got enough cover to keep people in a holding area, and then they talk to each other, and it can be quite useful. But yeah. So anyway, if you haven't got a home, you haven't got a group, you can still volunteer and hopefully help that way. Thank you.
Well, that's a great suggestion. Should be worth at least a cup of tea and a biscuit. Thank you, Julian. Are we going to about 4 or 5 breakouts?
Yeah, something like that. Do you know what? I haven't done this for so long. I can't remember how to do it. But
the questions are, Christian's put them in the chat. What have your group done around promoting retrofitting? There you go in the chat. Would you be interested in getting involved? GOH Green Open Homes, or do you or somebody else know? Be willing to be a green open. I think this is fantastic, this item, because put a toe in the water, you'll find people in the meeting here who you don't know have been doing amazing retrofitting work. You'll make contacts, you'll gradually learn which companies and organizations can help you with information and services, and it just kickstarts. Wow, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 minutes. We had a jolly good chat and exchanged some information. And I just want to mention to people that if you want to save the chat, which I think is particularly rich in links this time, remember Zoom used to save the chat for you at the end of any Zoom meeting you were in. These days you have to open the chat, go to the 3 dots right down at the bottom of the chat box, which pop up as more, and then click on save chat, which you can do at any time. And then if you do it again towards the end, you can add the rest of the chat to your saved chat. If you don't do that, you'll be going, oh, where's that chat? I didn't save it. You'll be emailing us at contact@Wiltshire Climate Alliance to ask us for the chat. It's much better if you save it.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Jeremy. Jeremy just saying in the chat that he's got to go. But thank you very much for that. What I'd be really interested to know is any groups who we feel, so COGS, I think was there, wasn't that? Were you representing COGS, Jimmy? I believe that's in the Salisbury area, would be willing to help kind of coordinate and kind of doing some, finding out if their members are willing to show their homes. What other group can I get kind of just, or either put it in the chat or put your hand up if you think your group would like to be involved in this big thing on the 8th of March to the 17th. Scan, lovely. And which one's that? Hands up. Oh God! I tell you what, just shout them out and I'll write them down. Devices, was that it? Lovely.
Well, yeah, sustainable devices. I'll take it to them on Monday.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Who else have we got that would be willing to take it to their group? Tony, lovely. Which group are you, Tony?
Well, with the Cliff Pipe Wildlife Group, there's only myself and one other person I can think, well, 2 other people I can think of, so I need to speak with them individually.
Yeah. Okay. Scan. Anybody else? Any other groups do you think might be willing? I'm probably going to do a ring around. Adrian, is that you with your thumb up?
Yeah, I should think Zero Chippenham, probably Avonese Trees, XR Chippenham.
Yeah.
I can think of 3 or 4 people straight away. So.
Okay, cool. I think we're going to get to our number before long.
Bradford and Avon has been doing quite a lot, and I've put an email, the contact email address for Climate Friendly Bradford and Avon in there. It's a question of emailing them and finding out how involved they can be. You've got Kate with a hand up.
Yeah, Kate.
Yeah, QC Green. I will join in again. Great Green Bedwin and I work very closely together, so I'm happy to do it again.
Thank you very much. Tony, you got your hand up? Oh, I've got Margaret as well. Yeah.
Just from the group, we had Ian very kindly said he would look into, because obviously the National Trust do a huge amount of retrofit and various installations on their properties all around the country. But he very kindly offered to nod if you still agreeing with that, Ian.
It's fine. Well,
check out a few properties that might be in tenants who might be interested.
Oh, that's fantastic. Are those leaky houses generally old heritage homes that are difficult to do?
But we've done them, so
Yeah, Ian.
But it'll rely on our tenants being willing to do it rather than
but would you be willing to canvass your and in other words act as a bit of a coordinator on behalf of
I'll nudge if it, or if it isn't me, I'll see if I can get someone to do it. What we might do is maybe see if we can do something in Laycock or somewhere like that. So
okay, cool. That's great. Who
Fantastic.
else? Oh, hang on, Sylvia.
Well, we'll explore with the people we invited, but it's actually quite quick after the other previous one.
Yeah,
I think the same's in Tisbury. To ask people again might be a bit tricky. I mean, although Kate and I, well, we'd probably be willing to, but I've only just this evening discovered that it's changed the dates.
Right.
So I need to check diaries and things like that. The other thing that we talked about in our group, or two things. One is this idea of doing a video visit, which Kate's explored. But the other thing is that we've installed what's it called, Jeremy? An air-to-air split site air conditioner, which is what you find in all hotel rooms, and is actually a heat pump. So it's not a fundable one, but it's very efficient. It's much more efficient than any sort of direct heating. Yeah. And we've had, since Jeremy put something in our parish news, we've had 4 or 5 inquiries about it. And it's very good at a single room. We use it we've installed it for air conditioning, which it does in the summer, but in the wintertime, it's very good at just a single room heating.
Okay, thank you.
Kate's got a hand up. Is that an old hand, Kate?
Kate's.
Your
I think it's an old hand. I think it's an old
Kate.
hand.
Thanks. In our group, Nick
your hands up.
Gave us a little experience from retrofitting tenanted and older properties in where you are, Nick, and that was useful. And our group also we surfaced the worry that air source heat pumps don't necessarily function well in cold weather in older properties, and there's a whole can of worms to be opened about whether that can be addressed, what to do with the property, where to find the expertise to have a correctly sized and fitted system, and so on. And that's exactly why this sort of initiative is great, because you start exploring it, exchanging notes, contacting the right people, and so on. So, Bill, unmute.
I'm just going to contradict what you just said, Andrew. I've got an old house and I've got a heat pump and it's brilliant. But I have insulated it first, to be fair.
They get a bad reputation if they're under-spec'd for older houses. If they're properly spec'd, work just fine.
I didn't even have to change the radiators, so it's very good.
Yeah,
Bill, was it easy to find a company that knew how to specify the right heat pump for your house?
Yes. For me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So if anybody thinks of anything that can help us with this project, in other words, 8th of March, it's the 17th of March, green open homes across the whole of Wiltshire, do let us know. Okay, so if you go back and talk to your groups and then come back to us, that would be really helpful. As soon as we get about 20-30 homes signing up, I think then we'll start publicity, and then that will generate more homeowners willing to show, etc. But we need to get that an initial number to make it worthwhile and to push it out. Jeremy or Jackie, anybody or Sylvie, add anything before we sign off on that one?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that we ended up with mostly sort of relatively modern homes that had been retrofitted. And what would be really nice is the small 2 up, 2 down older properties and Thatch and Victorian and all the other difficult properties that people have to deal with, particularly terraced houses. We haven't got many terraced houses, but they've done it.
Yeah.
So if you do know of any people who've got smaller homes or thatched homes or historic homes or terraced homes and smaller homes, that would make it much more worthwhile for everybody, I think.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Kate. I think it's very, very right.
Okay.
Like Nick, for example. Sorry.
Let's just take Adrian, who needs to unmute, and then Julian, and then we want to do 2 changes of topic in quick succession. We're doing good for time. Jimmy has an announcement about an event to do with transport, and then I believe we've got plenty of time for Claire to talk to us about planting elm trees, and that'll take us neatly up to about 8:30. So got Adrian there. Thanks.
So the question was for the open homes, is there a link on the website, or who's the lead and what's their email for that one?
Yep. So if you go to the events page on the it's there basically. So if you go to the WCA website and look at events with the second or third one down says Green Open Homes. I need to change the date on that. And at the moment, I'm the contact. I hope that eventually contacts will be disseminated out to the various different area groups, okay? And so that people will have that local contact rather. But we are looking to get some funding to have a coordinator, paid coordinator that's in hand at the moment, if I put it that way.
That's great. Thanks, Adrian. By the way, in our group, the subject of iBoost, where you can use your solar heat to heat water in your house, I believe, came up, and I've put a useful link to iBoost information. Got a hand up from Margaret Green, and then Jackie, you've got a hand up, a physical, real hand.
Yes.
I just okay, sorry, Margaret, do you want to go? I beg your pardon,
fight
Jackie.
over it. Yeah, I've just gone blank. That was helpful. Oh yes, I know somebody who has a large listed property, and desperately would like to green it. Goes by the name of Emma Dornay. So if anybody has got any ideas that can help her out, I'm sure she'd be really happy. Maybe somebody from the National Trust, because you've got the similar sorts of properties, haven't you? Yeah. She's got a big, yeah, I can't remember what the listing is. It's not one, but it might be two.
Or she can have a survey done. There are some people who are going around. I think Jackie can give us some more information on that.
Okay, yeah. It's finding someone who is actually reliable. I mean, that's the problem with this whole can of worms.
Jackie,
you've got to know who to trust. Yeah,
can you answer that one, because there is that survey that people are doing.
Yes, the Centre for Sustainable Energy, they have an offshoot which is Future Proof, which will come out and do an independent retrofit survey for you. We had one done; it was absolutely excellent, very, very helpful. And they've just taken £500 off the survey costs, which makes it just over £250, which is money well worth spent. And a gentleman came and spent 4 or 5 hours in our house doing a really deep, and discussed all the options with us, and then gave us a detailed report. What I was also going to say is the link to Green Open Homes is also on the retrofit page. And we're very much hoping that if you'd be kind enough to maybe talk to your communication people in your groups to promote it on your Facebook pages, and maybe have buttons on your website so that we can just share the information about both the retrofit and the Green Open Homes, it would be fantastic. Because it's an area that really does need to share more independent information. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. And we've got time for Julian to chip in.
Thanks. Yeah. Sorry to put you on the spot, Nick, but I'm also very sorry we didn't hear from you earlier. But I just wondered if you had any quick thoughts on whether Stourhead fits in with this or anything.
I would certainly be happy to show people what we got in this house, which is particularly just solar panels, wood chip boiler, which is probably not relevant to very many people, and internal insulation. But I think internal insulation on potentially damp walls is something that worth looking at. And does again apply slightly to larger houses, but you do lose part of your house. Your rooms get smaller, and people have got to be prepared to give up that space. So it's one of the reasons on small traditional properties we struggle to persuade tenants that they want internal insulation.
Okay, thank you, Nick. All right, we'll be back in touch anyway. Sorry we didn't get time to hear from you.
Right. Okay, thanks. That was really, really useful and really constructive going forwards, I think. Now, Jimmy, you've been waiting from near the beginning to tell us about an upcoming event, which I see you've just put a link in. Can you just, in a nutshell, tell us what that is before we let Claire update us on the Elms project, and then we finish the main part of the meeting?
Yep, it's the Salisbury Active Travel Conference that will be held on the 24th of February in Salisbury in 2024. And of course, Wiltshire Climate Alliance can take full responsibility for this, because based on the Devices meeting, which was held last year, we've got Catherine involved in ours. We've got some fantastic speakers. We've got Rachel Aldred, We've got Isabel Clement from Wheels for Wellbeing. We've got Emily Kerr from Oxford, who's a green councillor. We've got someone doing some Wiltshire cabinet for transport officer doing active travel. We've got a guy called Ian Walker, who's a professor in environmental psychology, and Peter Walker, the deputy political editor for The Guardian. So we've got a whole national set of speakers coming in to talk about active travel. The cost is going to be £12, including lunch, tea, coffee, and biscuits. All we need now is delegates. So looking to Wiltshire Climate Alliance members to come forward and join us in Salisbury on Saturday. It's a daytime meeting. I have to say that it's sponsored by Christian and all the kit, to whom we're extremely grateful for supplying the AV, because without support from people like Christian, we just wouldn't financially be able to keep those tickets as cheap as we've been able to. So again, thanks to all of Wiltshire Climate Alliance for all the fantastic ideas from your show last year. And we look forward to seeing as many people as possible in February in Salisbury.
And congratulations to COGS Cycling Opportunities Group for Salisbury, which as is your 30th anniversary coming up. And that makes you older than Cycle Bath, which is now called Walk Ride Bath. And you're laying on this fantastic high quality event. Well done, you guys in Salisbury.
Thank you.
Really top notch.
It's appreciated, Andrew.
Okay, now long-awaited update on the Elms Trees project. I'm sure it won't be the last update. Claire, can you fill us in?
Yes, indeed. But just first, thank you, Jimmy. I've just put that in my diary. I'm definitely up for that. Thank you so much for putting on something in Salisbury. Hooray. Right. Our Elms project, just to recap what we're trying to achieve with the Elms project, is we're trying to engage people at the groups level or individuals or people who are planting a new line of hedge or whatever their project is, to include in plantings an elm tree of some description. And what I must do is point out that we have with us this evening, or although I don't think I haven't heard from him, is Peter Shallcross. If you'd wave, Peter, and oh yeah, and I hope Peter will chip in if I say anything that I shouldn't, because Peter actually has the supply of trees that I've been talking to him about. So we're making progress on the project. The weather hasn't been kind. Peter's been telling me how unkind it's been, but we have an interesting array of people who are interested, and the takeout from that is that each one is different. So I'm hoping to start next month with someone who is going to plant 2 specimen trees. And I think the thing I'm wanting to do is to make sure that the WCA gets good feedback from that and gets the appropriate publicity from that, so that there will be an event around the planting, and the person who is having the trees is sort of up for that, and also very experienced, so it's a great one to start with. That's followed by somebody else who is wanting to plant a line of trees. So we're getting a good array of people, and then other people who want to do it as part of their local group planting. So when I last spoke about the trees, there was a desire to sort of know what the provenance of the trees was and what they were going to look like, because trees, as I've learned from doing this project, elm trees come in so many shapes and sizes. And I wondered if I could share, I don't know whether, Peter, you would like to just tell us a little bit about the trees. If I've got a little document with your pictures, could I bring that up and you just mention what they are?
Of course.
Yeah. Peter told me that he'd been on a very exciting trip to Holland, where this has been taken forward over a period of many years. So he sent me some most beautiful pictures. So I just wondered if we could share those. If I could share my screen.
Yeah, you should be able to now.
Oops, there we go. So Peter, would you like to just speak to these elm trees, and also just tell us about the different sort of shapes and sizes, and what you saw? If you can do that just very briefly, is that something you're happy to do?
Can't see the trees, Claire.
You see what I can see on my screen?
No, you need to go share screen and then click on your on the
Oh yes, sorry, I'm doing the wrong thing, aren't I? Where am my share screen? Sorry, beg your pardon. Share screen. Whoops, that's it. No, whoops, no, not that. Not that. Sorry, I had it just now and I've lost it. Bear with me. Sorry, I had it, now I've lost it. There we go. Bear with me. There we go. That's better. Are you seeing that?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So Peter, would you like to just tell us a little about the different varieties? Because the two major ones we're going to advance probably is, and I'm never quite sure how to say this, Lutece.
Lutece. It's easier.
Lutece. Yeah. Okay. Lutece. And I think this is the one which is thought to be most advantageous at the moment for the hair streak butterfly, because obviously one of the ideas of the project is to provide a home for the endangered white letter hair streak butterfly, and this has seemed to be the front runner on that. I think, Peter, you were thinking that. Is that right?
Yeah, this has been around longer. So the other alternative is Adamus, which has been found to be resistant a lot later than Lutece has been around. So this one is one of Hans Haybrook's original resistant breeding cultivars. And it's not that this one is not actually Lutece, it's a forerunner. So this is one of the parents of Lutece, but the shape is the same. So it's very branched, fan shaped. So in a way, it's quite similar to our wych elm. It's not almost minor because this one is a hybrid. So it's had genes from, or parents from, Himalayan elm in the past, which has given the resistance. And this one's fairly resistant. This parent, so it's not suitable actually itself to be planted over here because the disease pressure with is far greater than in Holland. So this one survives to a greater extent, but it's given the shape to Lutece anyway. And this one was planted in 1970, and it's one of a line of many trees that Hans Haybrook planted in 1970. So there's a 4-kilometer avenue of trees, all different cultivars, all the same age. It's quite tremendous. The other thing to say, the other similarity with wych elm is it's got big leaves, and it's although the white-letter hair streak will feed on all the elms that we know about, it's not that fussy. And in Andrew Brooks's demonstration site where he's got them all, he's found them. The caterpillars feeding on most of them, with one exception, I think. But they do like elm. They prefer elms with big leaves. So this is the favourite, I think. But it's not a replacement for our English elms because that's more. It's not the same shape at all.
So I'll go on to another one, if I may, Peter, which is this one.
Okay, so this is at Amsterdam. Again, this one we haven't got here. I forget what type this is because there's so many. There's 75,000 elm trees in Amsterdam alone, with all different ages. And when they reclaim some land, they plant an avenue of elms down the side of the street or the canal. So it is like a fairy tale, particularly for me, to go and see how advanced they are in terms of elm breeding.
So that gives us an idea of what's possible.
Yeah.
If there's a space that somebody wants to have an elm in, well, the sort of
Yeah.
the way that you could. I mean, it looks like that's been squeezed in quite a small space, really, relatively. But anyway, then move on to the third one you sent us, which is a lovely tree.
Yeah, well, this is more like Adamus, so this is an almost minor type tree. So all elms are very branched, as this one is, but it's got more upright habit, and the Adamus won't be an exact replacement for the English elm. It'll be more like the surviving Anglian elms, which are also the same species, almost minor. But because English elm is every English elm in the UK is the same clone, they're all identical. Another clone won't be the same.
But I think that gives us a very the reason I wanted to show the pictures is it gives us a really helpful idea of where you can have them, and also the different shapes and the different considerations as to how you decide which tree you want to have, and that will depend on what you want the tree for. Do you want it, you primarily considering the butterflies? Are you primarily considering the shape of the tree on your village green or whatever, or are you trying to squeeze it into a spot because you've got a small spot? All those things are important. So I thought it was really nice to have those pictures, and people in discussing the trees with me, I'm trying to find out precisely what their requirements are, why they want the tree, what sort of tree they're what sort of environment it's going to be in, and what space it's got to grow, or is it just going to be in a hedgerow or whatever. So the way it's going forward and the way it's developing is that we need to get to the point where people give me expressions of interest, and then we can discuss with them, and then it's much easier to take forward what the planting would be, rather than generate lots of paperwork for people to read through, because that just isn't going to happen. I think people need a kind of personal service as to how, where, and what tree to plant. So that's sort of, I don't know, I can add a lot more to where we are at the moment. The weather is going to be quite important in what goes on. And please do spread the word. So when we've got the first planting, there will be publicity, and I'm doing some more publicity locally down here in Salisbury about the project. So I think if people, and I'm going to probably start cut myself off if I don't watch it. So right. I'll try not to do that.
So, no, there's been a brilliant meeting so far. We're running over time because this is really interesting and useful. But if anyone does want to drop out, 4 or 5 people have had to. And I just want to ask you one question, and then we've got Adrian and Bill, which is if we were in a community or parish or small town that we would like to get a tree planted, what's the first thing we should do, Claire?
And that's go on the website, and we've got a contact form on the website, or just email the contact email and contact me, and I will get back to whoever's interested, which is what I've been doing so far.
So that's the Wiltshire Climate Alliance website, yes?
Yes, there's a little form to fill in. Can you bring that up? There we are. There's the form, and just send that form in, and then that'll come through to me, and I or someone else will give a ring, and we'll find out exactly what the requirements are. Yeah.
Adrian, yes.
That was a pretty amazing picture of that tree in Amsterdam there. Can you talk to us a little bit about tree roots? Because if that was planted after all of the human urban environment was already there, then one would suspect that elms don't interfere with foundations or buildings or bricks or canals. Is that the case? Are they really good like that?
Yeah, these ones replace lime trees because they were interfering with the canal banks. So they hold the banks together. And the other thing about these trees, some of them will sucker. So the lutece in some circumstances suckers. So again, you wouldn't want to plant that in that environment. The Adam, as far as we know, doesn't sucker. No tree that that's been planted so far has ever suckered, so we assume it's not, but that may not be true because we only know trees under 30 years old at the moment. They seem
So
very good.
does a suckering tree suggest that it's going to cause root damage to buildings, and a non-suckering tree is a good one? Does it just go straight down?
That's right. I mean, some of the Dutch ones are suckering, but because they're in a preformed a space within a pavement, they just sucker like a lime tree does, which is just sucker from the base. They don't seem to be able to spread underneath the pavement and come up. So they are, some of them do sucker, but they don't. They seem to be restrained in the environment, in the the urban environment.
But I think it's fair to say, isn't it, Peter? If you start talking about damage to buildings, people are thinking of something like a kind of Japanese knotweed or something like that. I mean, suckers aren't of that order, and they're not. They're not going to cause damage as such. Generally speaking, I would think. And would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean they're planted as an urban tree throughout Holland, so it's not a problem. But I mean some trees sucker more than others. So if you had it's like if you wouldn't want a poplar in your garden, a white poplar, because they would just fill up the garden with suckers. So it's not like that at all.